Coming in today. I'm Rudy Sanchez. I'm an academic and career advisor here at Pacific. And today I'm going to be talking about connecting college sports and careers. As you're coming in, please scan the QR code to check in. Snack station is still being set up, but feel free to come up at any moment once it is done to get food or drink. I'm totally cool with that. All right. So first off, as we're getting started, I kind of wanted to ask, what sports do we have in the room? Yeah. Swimming, okay. Yeah, it's my sports. Yeah. Baseball, Tyler, yeah, and soccer. Okay, so a wide range. Cool, cool. Well, feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. I'll be asking you guys questions, and so definitely feel free to raise your hand or just speak up, all right? Okay. Yep. Reason it's not letting me go to the next slide. Okay. First, connecting college sports and careers. That's going to be the topic for today. So being able to talk about what skills you have on the field and how you can translate them once you do graduate and enter the workforce. All right. So some learning outcomes help you prepare and update a resume and cover letter that's going to highlight the skills that you have in order to do a certain job and prep you for job interviews where you can link your skills and experiences to the need of the employer. And so as you'll be able to see, I'm going to have different sports represented on the slides, all within the Pacific Northwest, because, got to represent the local area. All right. So a little bit of background. College athletes represent a unique population of college students. Can anyone tell me the percentage of college students that are athletes? No, you're good. That's okay. Yeah, go for it. Christine. It's close. A little higher. Lower. 7. Yeah. 7% of high school athletes take it to the next level in college at any level. So that's D1, D2, D3, JUCO, NAIA, and everything else in between. So only 7% of all college students do a sport. So you guys represent a unique group of people in your environment. I know it doesn't necessarily feel like that here. Here at Pacific, it's about usually it's about at least a third of our students are athletes as well. And so like when I was here, it was almost half of the students here were student athletes. And so like it wasn't until I left and went to another school for my master's where I really felt that, wow, not a lot of students had my experience in college. So definitely it's something you guys are going to want to highlight when you're talking to potential employers. Going off the stats, most college athletes can transition to a career after college. I think about 1% of all college athletes make it to a level afterwards. So, whether it's going pro or trying to make a national team. And so, being able to make the transition is going to be really important from student athlete to fully fledged professional. And there is a struggle in that transition, especially when it comes to applying for jobs. I experienced it too. And so I'm thankful that I had certain people helping me along the way to help be able to talk about myself outside of my sport. And so, like I said, skills that you got while playing can definitely be applied to your careers, and that's going to be the focus of what we talk about today. So my own background, I did cross country and track when I was here at Pacific for 4 years. Loved it. Definitely the highlight of my experience here. My teammates are my family. Like I still do a fantasy football league with my cross country teammates. I use my background in college athletics to land certain roles and to get into my master's program as well. And I get to combine my passion for both sports and education within my work each and every day. And so it's something that I definitely draw on. An example of this is that I minored in coaching when I was here. I'm technically certified to coach track and field and cross country. And when I first came back, I was looking for a job, and I happened to have one line on my resume that said I was certified to coach track and field. And my former boss's boss saw that and said, we need to interview him. And a week later I was hired. So like, you never know what'll catch the eye. That was something that caught the eye. They also happen to know me because I went here. They're like, oh wow, he's a recent alum. He knows the sport in and out. He can help recruit track and field and cross country runners, which I did. Loved it. And so, and now I get to work with students, some of them of whom are student athletes. I can relate to their experiences and, some of the day-to-day struggles that they go through. And so just kind of jumping into it, like these are all skills that I got through a lovely website on the BPI on that you can talk about on resumes, on cover letters, at interviews about what you got from being a student athlete. And a lot of these, you can put numbers and figures to, like, and put personal stories on too. So like being able to handle pressure well, being able to multitask, goal setting. Sports is all about getting a certain goal, whether it's running a certain time in an event, or whether it's winning a game with, or trying to improve certain stats, like, and so being able to talk about that and make it come across that you do have experience in these areas, just maybe in a different way, is going to be key when you're applying for jobs. Um, Making pressure decisions. I mean, sometimes one decision can, determine a win or a loss. Being able to, confidence. I know prior to sports, I lacked a lot of confidence, and being an athlete gave me, a certain sense of, confidence and determination that I am really grateful for. And so I am definitely able to hone that and be able to use it. And so, but yeah, definitely, if you want this list, I can send it to you. That is not a problem. But these are all great things that you got through being an athlete, and you can use further beyond that. In terms of getting to brass tacks, in terms of, being able to talk about your experience on a resume, I have some tips. So definitely a few basic tips. Definitely recommend using a modern resume. I mean, not a modern resume, use a old school one. Don't use one with pictures or fans or divisions, because a lot of companies just scan. They use this app to scan your resume, and if you have a picture, it's not going to be able to read anything on your resume. So you want to make sure that they're able to access the information on it. And don't just go off of Google and use the first template that you see, because they can actually tell that you do that now. I learned that last year in a class that I was taking. And so you definitely want to, you can use a template, but tailor it to make sure it doesn't look exactly like that. And then use your participation in college athletics to highlight skills in addition to instead of work experience. So if you don't maybe necessarily have experience in the field that you want to go into, just try to see if you can get an experience from your college sport to talk about how you are qualified, even though you necessarily didn't have some direct experience in that field. And so another tip, get involved in a way out, get involved in your sport just indirectly, like coach a youth league or volunteer at a sporting event, things like that. And examples of how to highlight those skills and to be involved are here. So balancing over an 18-hour-a-week practice, training, competitions, traveling at NCAA Division III level, in addition to academics, that is really important. I mean, when you think about it, doing a college sport is basically like a job. And so like being able, and it takes up a lot of your time. I mean, my coach said it was a top three. It should, if you were to do a sport in college, it should be a top 5, if not a top 3 priority in your life. And so in order to be effective at it. And so being able to show like, this is what I do with the majority of the time, and this is what I'm done in that time. And putting a number to it can definitely help you stand out. Being selected. So like, I was selected as team captain, and so I led drills. I scouted the courses. Like I knew almost every place that we traveled to when we were competing. And as the lone senior on my team, like I was able to translate that knowledge over to my younger teammates and help them do better at competitions. Like, and this doesn't necessarily need to be, like really, it can be stuff like out of the norm, stuff like that. It doesn't have to be definite. Like you know, like I was team captain all 4 years, or I got all conference. Like it can be the day-to-day practice and how you make your team better that can help you stand out too. Because that shows teamwork, it shows being able to collaborate, it shows being able to want to have a collective, work towards a collective goal. And then a way of being involved outside of athletics, indirectly, it could be coaching younger players every week. It could be doing Special Olympics. I know that's a thing here at Pacific. Being a part of the Student Athletic Advisory Committee. I was a part of that too. If you're not, I recommend it. It's a great way to meet athletes outside of your sport. And if you attend a conference level SAC meeting, you can meet athletes outside of Pacific at the conference level. And I got to do that, got a lot out of it. I was friends with people I competed against, and we would say hi to each other at meets and make connections like that. And so, yeah, definitely some good tips there for resume. Some sections on the resume. This is a little more general, but I still want to highlight it. Name and contact information. So this is just name, email. If you are a senior, I recommend doing your personal email, because in case you don't feel like you're going to use a Pacific email anymore. Phone number. You don't need to put your full address. Just put, just put the town and state that you're going to be at. A little bit of info about you, just highlighting what you're interested in and what your strengths are. Certifications, if you have any. So if you're first aid certified, if you're certified to coach or have strength and conditioning, put that on there. It shows that you were able to do a course and get certified in it. Your experience, this could be paid or non-paid. It could be, and you're going to want to tailor this based on each job that you apply to, but, and also be able to talk about, have specifics in each, situation, action, and as well as a result, and what, and the details for each one. Education, this gets moved towards the bottom of the resume now and a little more of an update. But yeah, you're gonna want to put when you're graduating from Pacific, as well as what degree you got. And then any other skills that maybe didn't fit anywhere else that you want the employer to know about. My skills in terms of being a coach, certified coach, were at the bottom of my resume. And that was the one thing that my boss's boss noticed right off the bat. So, put something that maybe you think is a little random, but we never know. It could get somebody's attention. Creating a cover letter. Think of it like most people didn't know what a cover letter is. I didn't know. Does anybody know what a cover letter is? Outside of the row in the back. I know those people. Yes. It's the basics of like why you're interested in the job. Yeah. Why you benefit. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. So it's kind of like an essay saying why you're interested. It's kind of like your admissions essay to Pacific, saying who you are and why you want to be here. And so you use the same format. You use a similar format. There are different ways to do this. I used an example of a dual cover format here. So like you can actually take, regardless of what format you use, you're going to want to read the job description and literally take stuff from that job description to show how you're qualified to do that job. So, for on the left, so these are examples of things that are on a job posting I found. And on the right-hand side are examples of how I use my experience as a student athlete to show that I'm qualified. So as needed, the AD assists the director in providing data and winning reports of various constituencies. I've experienced in this because I have a strong background in analyzing game stats of other teams to find strategies to overcome opponents. So when I did cross country and track, I knew which team was favored to win. I knew our strengths in track and how we could beat other teams based off of those strengths. I knew where other teams were weak and where they wouldn't get as many points. So I had a very good shot of predicting the placement of the teams in the conference at the championship. And everyone would go up to me saying, Rudy, what events do we need to go to? Okay, you go to triple jump, you go to shot put, you go to discus, and then we need to all be here for the 4x4. So that is how I was able to use that info to better help our team. And so being able to, strategically be able to do that in a cover letter is going to help you stand out and help you hopefully ideally get you into the interview, and then ideally after that get you the job. Questions on that? All right, cool. Interview prep. So this is kind of like meet day, or game day. Like you prep and then you compete and hopefully get the job. And so key part of that is you practice. You don't compete 7 days a week. You practice 5 or 6, and then you compete on the weekends usually, right? And so it's kind of the same thing. So you got to get ready for it. You research the institution. It's kind of like watching game film on your opponent. You learn about who they are, how many people they employ, what's important to them. Like, it's not just them hiring you, but you choosing them. So if they give you the job, like if it's not a good fit, you're not going to want to work there. So you definitely want to do your homework and make sure you know about them, as because they're going to try to get to know you too. And so use your athletic network. Like I said, the sports world is small. Only 7% of students go on to become a college athlete. Like, though you may not think it, but the sports world is a lot smaller than you think it is. Like, I've met people that hosted a former teammate of mine here on the other side of the country, and now he's in the same state as them, working at a D1 level. And so, like, and that was just one random conversation I had with them to make that connection, and then we became friends after that. So it is, and then a few years later, I interviewed at that school that person went to. And so it is like, it's small connections like that in the sports world that you're able to make, not just within, you know, usually it's within the same sport that you do, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it could be the same school that makes that connection, or the same conference. Like, I've met people that I interviewed somewhere else with a person went to Linfield, and we're both from Oregon in Virginia. That's like, we were talking about that, and we were both runners, and we're like, whoa, like, random. And yeah, it's crazy when something like that happens, but it does, especially if you're a student athlete. And so you definitely take advantage of that. Be able to show that you were a student athlete, but also, like, go to go to the recent alums in your sport. You never know what they might be doing, and if they might be hiring. But 80% of the jobs are not advertised. They come through word of mouth, and you guys have a very unique network that you're able to tap into and use to your advantage. And so, like, talk to coaches. Maybe they know people. Like, the coaching network is real too. Like, they've coached a lot of people, but they also know other coaches that know other people. And so being able to use those connections is a really good thing for you guys. And so and then be sure to have, in terms of interviews, be sure to have answers for frequently asked questions. The big one is, what are your greatest strengths and weaknesses? I know there was a great presentation on that yesterday and today about that. And being able to address questions like that during your practice is going to be really helpful down the line. And highlights how certain skills were developed due to being a college athlete. For me, I definitely talked about the importance of collaboration. So I learned a lot my first 2 years from my teammates. I was able to watch them and become a better athlete myself. And then when I was an upperclassman, I was able to instill that same knowledge under the rest of my teammates. And so, and that's just one example of what I got from being a student athlete, and so many more that I don't even have time to get into. But and and then you also never know who was a student athlete too, and they might connect with that. And then at the end of the interview, of course, have a few questions ready to ask them. So like I said, it's not just them choosing you, it's you choosing them, and getting key information from them is going to be really important. So asking about, like, legit stuff that maybe you can't find on the website, but you really want to know. It's going to show your level of interest. It's also going to show that you really care and you want to, that you're really invested in getting hired by them. And so doing your due diligence and researching that ahead of time is going to be it's going to be important, and having more than one question too, because maybe they'll answer some of them during the interview. So you want to have at least one or two ready to ask at the end. References and networking. Like I said, the sports world is small, and sports are a great way to get references. My coach, when I was here, was a reference when I first got hired at Pacific. They called him up the same day apparently, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I love Rudy. Like, hire him." And I still maintain contact with him. He's one of the people who helped shape my life, and I'm very thankful for that. And so you never know who you're gonna meet, and so it helps to treat everybody well. And like I say, coaches make great references, especially if you're coming out of college, because they're people that have literally watched you. They recruited you probably when you were 17 or 18, and they've watched you develop into somebody else by the time you're done here. I definitely was not the same person I was when I came in, and my coach was able to talk about that, about how I developed and became a better version of myself throughout his time as my coach. And in terms of making connections as well, like I said, join athletic organizations. If there's something within your sport that you might want to join, consider it. You never know where it might lead. And making relationships with people from other multiple sports and other teams. I got that from doing SAC. I highly recommend it because again, like you get to work towards a common goal, but not just with people within your sport. And I think that's really valuable. Like you all wear the same uniform, you all represent the same school on the weekends, and you might as well support one another as you work towards that, you know? All right. So I'm definitely available to talk about your experiences, answer any questions you might have. I'm a sports fanatic. I could talk sports all day. Anybody that knows me knows that. Like, just watch the Super Bowl on Sunday, even though I don't, I follow football, but I didn't have a team. It was just cool to watch. But I'm in Pacific Hall 129. You can definitely make an appointment on my Calendly or just contact me. I will get back to you within 24 hours. But thank you so much for coming. I wanted to leave some time to have you guys ask some questions or go over stuff that you guys maybe need help with. But thank you so much, and hope you got something from this conversation here. All right, questions? Yeah, Heidi. Yeah. From what I've seen, they happen a little more towards the master's level. So like usually like I had the unique opportunity to potentially be like a grad assistant. And that was kind of like an internship that would also help pay for grad school. I ultimately chose not to go down that path, but it is definitely something that's offered, and that's where really connections within your sport are really going to help you land those opportunities. Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks, Heidi. Yeah, Leah.
Chat about some examples of like how you mentioned how you have used stuff from your team experience.
Yeah.
It doesn't directly relate to, like, say you were gonna go work somewhere for a time off,
Yeah.
right? Or it's not work related.
Yeah. 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 So I usually go with like not always the competition piece, but kind of more the preparation to compete piece to have transferable skills. So like looking at game film, that's like doing research and collecting information. Showing up to practices and competition, that's being able to meet deadlines, being prompt, being able to and so like also, being, knowing everything that you need to use, that's operating equipment and, and just like a bunch of little things that add up eventually over time, I've come to realize, the stuff that you don't necessarily think about because the big focus is being on the field and winning, but that's, it takes a lot off the field to be able to pull that off. And that's the key stuff that you can talk about when putting stuff on a resume and talking about during an interview.
I think of work ethic.
Yes. Yep.
For work ethic.
Yep. Yeah. Yes. That's
Question. I just wanted to say, I never thought about applying the off the field, what do you call it, skills into the like work environment or resume or anything like that. So just want to thank you for
Oh yeah.
that's my eyes.
Yeah. Trust me, it comes from trial and error on my part. But yes, you're welcome. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's something I realized it's not talked a lot about. I mean, like I said, I was one of two former student athletes in my grad school that I met. And that just blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, I have a very unique perspective. And one of my professors especially loved it because I talked about the NCAA. I talked about the importance of having a mentor and a coach, to talk about having teammates working towards a common goal. Like it's a very unique environment where you're working with you're with people on a daily basis to work towards something. And that is something that, I was able to bring to the classroom too, and talk about, and so I was like, well, why can't you do this with the job too? So, yeah.
I think it's probably even unique that for grade school, because you know, you're not being paid to.
Yep.
To do the course, so I think you really have, you show your passion. for sport.
Yes, your love for the sport. Yeah. Yeah, you know you love the sport if you're doing it in D3. At least that's how I was phrased when I was here. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Mike.
More of a comment.
Yeah.
Great presentation. I really appreciate how you framed a lot of this. Comment around our core career readiness competencies, and it sort of connected me to this idea of a matrix with some of the on the field and off the field traits and characteristics, and if those could be mapped in the same way that we map the core requirements, the gen ed requirements
Yeah.
to those competencies. Like just a thought, wondering if there's a way to connect those. I'm sure there is.
Yeah,
So a possible future projects for us.
Yeah. never thought of that. Yeah, that'd be cool though. Yeah. Yes, yeah, especially due to like the time commitment, like it is, yeah, really intensive too. I mean, as I'm sure you can all attest to, I mean, I'm pretty sure their sports take up a vast majority of your time here, right? Yeah,
I wonder if everyone knows what competencies are.
yeah, wow, you got it.
It's called, the National Association of College. And they get together every year and they figure out what the top, skills or qualities that they want, right? Just kind of across the board. And we've identified 10 of them and they are all throughout our curriculum. Depending on the course, see them in your green outcomes. Anyway, we can map those to what we was talking about, so that you can say, well, I know a really important skill is communication. And I practice that skill through my sport in this way. That's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think that you all probably know the skills that you, right, you thought about, it, you can come up with some skills that you probably know it already, but it's the translating it to what the resume speaks.
Mhm.
That, like, maybe you can be that, so like examples of resume bullet points for communication around athletes, right? And
Mhm.
they've got a list of like worked with my 15 other college students from diverse backgrounds on a regular basis towards a common goal, right? I'm just using
Yeah.
but right, like,
yeah,
and part of it's just like learning how to translate the skills that you all have into how the employers want to hear it.
yes,
That's great.
yeah, that would, yeah. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
The question was, like strategies to activate my cycle, like, so that it can be like a strong reference, strong.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's gonna be different for every student because every student athlete, because like that's the head coach may not necessarily be the coach that you go to. I've been very fortunate in that both of my head coaches, I didn't realize this until this past year, but I was the guy for my head coaches. Like they knew they could count on me. And like we had such a unique mentor-mentee relationship with both of them in high school and in college. And so, but that's different for every student athlete. Sometimes there's certain positions that you work with more than the head coach himself or herself. And so it's gonna vary based on like every student athlete, I feel like, has a certain coach that they connect with the best. And that's usually the coach that you go to for those situations. Ideally, you find a coach like that in college too. And they're drawn, you're drawn to them and because you want to play for them, because in college, it's usually the first time you get to choose who you play for. And so being able to find that coach as early as freshman year and just like, for me, it was trial of fire. Like my coaches and I went through a lot together. So like it created a very deep bond because we got through a lot together. But it doesn't necessarily need to be that. It could just be a natural relationship from that. Just click on day one, or in my case, it develops over time. And so just finding that coach that you really resonate with is gonna be the biggest important step in that, like, yeah. And then that translates over time because you still stay in contact with them and eventually, ideally, when you do ask there, it's gonna be a resounding yes, of course I will speak up for you and help you hopefully land this job or internship or opportunity.
I was wondering how, being a student athlete could incorporate this, like, in the cover letter into something that's different from coaching, like, for example, the medical field, for example, like.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah. So in terms of translating it in terms of a medical field, you could talk about like what you've learned in terms of health and fitness as a student athlete, and like based on your own experience, like did you get a certain injury and you learned how to treat it, or did you go and research different ways to, get fitter at the gym or just become better overall in your sport? Come at it from talk about your sport from a medical background and how you use that to become a better student athlete. I feel like it's a great way to come at it. Yeah, mental health. Yeah, physical and yeah. Thank you, Heidi. Yeah. You got time for a few more questions? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I didn't hear the first part. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Bedside thing.
Yeah.
Come at it from like, how do you relate to teammates who are down or like,
Yeah.
right, team morale.
Yeah.
Is.
Yeah, the team dynamics, yeah, definitely key. Like, and that could change too. Like, I mean, I think there's a certain transition when you're a freshman or a first year, even as a transfer student, and you have to get used to a new environment. You have to, be around a bunch of people that you've never met before, but you have one very big thing in common, and then it shifts to, and then the next year there's a new group of people that come on too, and then you have to work with them. And so like being able to adjust to being a part of a new team dynamic, I think is something you can definitely mention and highlight, and how you got through those situations. Did you like, did you host a dinner, or did you all agree to go to a movie, or just invite a couple of people that maybe you thought you maybe seemed lonely and you wanted to make sure they had company, like that it could be something as simple as that, like inviting someone to play Halo or Call of Duty and just just because you wanted to get to know them better, or just talk about how like how the team meets and interacts at the start of each season, and what your role was in that, or do you lead drills or something like, so do you lead drills at practice, or do you do something on game day, that's different from everybody else, like it doesn't have to be something grand, but just talk about how you impacted the team in some shape or form, because everybody does, whether they know it or not, like it's the little things that sometimes people take the most from. Like my teammates once a week invited me to Burlingame to play Call of Duty and have dinner with them. They texted me while I'm doing homework, come over. I'm like, okay. Yeah, and that meant a lot. Like and those two guys that did it, they were like the backbone of the team. They were never captain or leaders, but we all looked to them as that. They united all the 4 event areas, and they all kind of indirectly directed all of us. And when they left, like we felt it. They're like, there's, like they shaped the team in such a way where like we took a lot from having them pull us together. And so it was just indirect actions that they did like that shaped us, that I remember the most, honestly. But yeah, like that, that being able to work with different people in different situations, so important, as we can all attest to. Like that is a big part of working. You work with people every day, different kinds of people, good, bad, everything in between, and how you address each of those situations is going to be really important. You guys have a unique experience in being able to talk about that, with each season that you compete here. Yeah, Madison.
Do you think things would have went similarly for you if you were not an athlete?
No.
or-
I almost dropped out my sophomore year. Yeah, and the main reason was my team. My team got me out of the dark days. They, I remember, yeah, I remember I was miserable my sophomore year. I was hurt. I was frustrated. I wasn't doing well in school. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And so my teammates told me, stop for 1 week. Don't lift, don't run, don't train, don't rehab. Just do 1 week, no, nothing athletic related. And if you can come back from that and still not want to do it, then quit. I did. I couldn't believe it. So, and then I went on to have the best stretch of my career after that, like a year and a half later. I finished out super strong, but it was because my teammates sat me down and my coach never gave up on me. Like, he could have given up on me and gone for somebody younger and more athletic than me, and he didn't. He kept me around. And so that is, like, I would not be here without that. So like, I'm, that's why, like, I'm such a big advocate of college athletics, because I know the impact it has. Especially the impact it had on me. All right.